Hi, I'm Heather from Here Booktubes, and today's overhyped books that I love. So these are ones that I personally just have seen a bajillion times, but I have read and loved them. And honestly, I'm not usually the biggest fan of traditionally published books and or the super hyped books. There's some that I like, but a lot of the times I'm either not interested in reading them, or I do read it and I DNF, or I do read it and I don't enjoy it that much. So these are kind of the exceptions to my rule. These are overhyped books that I genuinely love and think deserve the hype. So starting off with the Brown Sisters series by Talia Hibbert, I've read and loved the first two books, Get Life Chloe Brown and Take a Hint Dani Brown. Get Life Chloe Brown has a main character who has fibromyalgia and is, trying to make life for herself and is going through a lot of pain and has a hate to love relationship with the sunshiny. They're both sunshine, but they both hate each other, and he's like the super for her apartment buildings. It's great. There's a completely unnecessary third act breakup, but they work it out. And then Take a Hint, Dani Brown. She is a very prickly witch, bisexual professor, and she has a romance with the security guard at her college. He rescues her. They do fake dating after going viral, and yeah, it's really sweet. There's anxiety. The hero reads romance books. It's super sweet. I really do enjoy Talia Hibbert's writing. It's very funny and whimsical and just like writing that I enjoy, and I think that they are definitely worth the hype. Then I have Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon. This I read years ago because my Kindle Amazon was like, you'll like this book, and I was like, no, I won't. I am not into aliens like that. And I really did not think I could get into aliens. Like, I just thought it would not be for me. But it just kept being recommended, and eventually I didn't have something to read, and I picked it up, and I read like a bunch of books in a row. And it put me on an entire spiral where I read, I kid you not, like 30 alien books. Like 7 of this series, and then a whole nother series, and then a spin-off, and then other standalones, and just all sorts of stuff in like the period of a month. So I dove headfirst into it once I was into it. The beginning of this book does have some content warnings. They're kidnapped by bad aliens, and they do essay a character on page. But I loved the good aliens. I loved the lack of communication. I loved the instant, like, sexy times that were happening. I liked everything about it. Then I have Radiance by Draven. This is kind of a slice of life fantasy, and it is an arranged marriage for political purposes, and they find each other hideous. They're completely different species, right? And she has to go and live with him. Their people are nocturnal. She doesn't like the food. She doesn't know the food. She doesn't know the customs. She doesn't know the language. Just like all sorts of things. She's really thrown into it. But he helps her every step of the way. They are just determined to like each other as best they can and to do what they can, even though they aren't attracted to each other. And that does eventually lead to actual love. And it is delightful. Don't read it for the plot. There's not really a plot, but they're so sweet. I would love to reread this book, actually. I've heard it recommended a million times, and I, again, read it before Booktube and loved it. It's also a really good one if, like, you don't like to be super stressed by your fantasy, but you like those fantasy vibes. Then I have There Are No Saints by Sophie Lark. I read and loved this duet. This is dark romance, serial killers who are competing with each other, and the main character catches the eye of one serial killer, so the other serial killer offers her as a gift and almost kills her. And the first serial killer wasn't interested, but then he realizes she survived, and now he's very interested. And it's obsessive and dark and morally gray, and she gets darker as the series goes on. I loved the finale of this duet. I thought the second book was just as good as the first, and that's difficult to do. I think it deserves the hype. If you like dark serial killer new adult romances, I had a good time. Then I have every single Ilona Andrews book ever. I love Hidden Legacy. I love Kate Daniels. I've enjoyed a bunch of their other work as well, but I would probably recommend starting with Hidden Legacy because it's shorter. You have interesting magic systems, all sorts of twists and turns, but Nevada is a investigator, and she has all this family that she's trying to take care of, and she's forced onto this case, and because she's on this case, she runs into one of the most powerful magic users in the entire world that everyone's scared of. and he kidnaps her and takes her to his basement and then falls in love with her when she is stronger than she appeared. It's great. It's great. They're so good to each other. He's very alpha and she's very, I don't think so. And I just love them so much. Like Holy Grail, peak, all-time favorites. And of course the Kate Daniels series, Curran and Kate. He's the king of the shifters, basically. She is a mercenary, but is a powerful somebody, we think. We don't really know. And she's definitely a character where she's good because she chooses to be. And it's just very interesting, the exploration that's done there and the exploration of power and just all the things. I love everything about them. All-time favorites. The hype is real. They are, in my opinion, literally the best. I don't know anyone that does it better than they do. Like urban fantasy, you can't read urban fantasy without being Ilona Andrews. Next I have The Duchess Deal by Tessa. This is a funny, lighthearted, comical, like really good historical romance where he is a scarred duke and his fiance runs away and does not pay for the wedding dress. So the dressmaker wears the wedding dress to his house and is like, hey, I need you to pay for this. And he's like, I'll do you one better. I'll marry you. You give me an heir and we're good. And she's like, money for my dress shop? Okay. And she continues her dress shop as a duchess. But also it's one of those two where like he's like, no feelings, I'll push you away. And she's like, I see you're having a hard time. I'm gonna give you some grace. Go take a nap or eat some food or drink some water. And I'll come back when you've got your emotions under control. Like she doesn't get offended at all. And I loved that. Next, I have Desperate Measures, which is Wicked Villains #1 by Katee Robert. I have not read and loved the whole series. Yeah, but I love Desperate Measures. It's a Jasmine and Jafar BDSM modern day retelling where Jafar is the morally gray hero and Aladdin is the bad guy. And there's consensual non-consent, which is my favorite kink, and it's great. It's great. There's also a sex club and there's multiple partners in scenes with them and taking over from her dad to save her from a bad marriage. Good stuff. Good stuff. Well worth the hype in my opinion. Then I have Paladin's Grace, which is The Saint of Steel #1 by Kingfisher. This is going round right now. Like it is, I feel like getting very hyped right now. I've seen an absolute ton of people mention this book specifically and also other Kingfisher works right now. Like she is doing the rounds. This was so good. I just read this. I did not anticipate enjoying it nearly as much as I did, and it was amazing. It was amazing. This has a lot of dark themes while still being very light. I laughed so much during this book. I loved their meet cute. It was phenomenal. You have a perfumer and a paladin. A paladin is a holy knight, and his god died, and it's 3 years later. He's broken. They get into all sorts of shenanigans, and there's also like a murder mystery and just all sorts of things going on. It's so good and funny and sweet and quiet and just like perfect in every way. Everyone who has said that T. Kingfisher's writing is immaculate told no lies, okay? This is easily a new favorite author for me. Easily. Then I have Iron Widow by Xiran Zhao, and this is a young adult, but higher young adult, historical sci-fi, I guess. And so you have like a bunch of elements from ancient China, and also they have mechs and there's like aliens and there's like all these things, right? But the mechs, the female co-pilots are basically sacrificed to run it. Like they get drained of energy and they die almost every single time, right? And also our main character does undergo foot binding and is disabled because of it, can't walk well, can't walk without pain, all of these things. And her family is awful. You're gonna get rid of them quickly, but they are awful. And she has a long-time childhood best friend who is actually very rich, and he wants to save her, and she's like, absolutely not, because her sister was murdered by the really popular pilot of the mech that she was sent to. She didn't die in battle, so her family didn't get compensated, and she was murdered. And she's just bent on revenge, so she goes to murder the guy that killed her sister, and, you know, if everyone dies because of it, so be it. And she does successfully kill him. I think not in the way that she had anticipated, and she's forced to be with the most powerful pilot, which should be a good thing, except he was convicted of murdering his entire family and is literally kept in chains and, you know, is a prisoner. And she's thrown in with him. And it's great. You have a polyamorous love triangle between her, the bad guy, and the best friend. They are like, burn the system down, and I love them. I can't wait to read book 2. I've heard nothing, literally nothing. Okay, that's not true. I heard one like negative thing and I was like, are you kidding me? I wanted to come at this person so hard, but I didn't because I don't even know them. But man, I was not happy. I was literally like, you are so wrong. I cannot even begin to tell you how wrong you are. So yeah, that was a visceral reaction I had, but it was amazing. Besides that one person who was wrong, I've heard nothing but amazing things about this book, and it's true. It's all true. Then, I'm so ready to rant. Then I have The Love Hypothesis by Ailey Hazelwood. So, this is Raylo fanfic that was published, and it's woman in STEM, and it's fake dating, and professor, and all sorts of stuff, right? Good stuff. Is it steamy? Absolutely not. Do not go into this thinking it's a steamy romance. There's one sex scene, and it's alright, but there's some issues. It's not steamy at all whatsoever. It's also all in her head, and she has some pretty negative self-talk, so that's a little bit difficult, but it did not annoy me to the point where I hated the book. I loved the book, right? Here's the thing. I'm so glad that we brought this up so I could rant about this. This is Raylo fanfic, and also her other 3 books that have been published are also Raylo fanfic. Why the publisher was like, yes, let's publish 4 Raylo fanfics from the same person when no one has had any of their other work before, but we can't have 2 Black authors the same year because we already have one. Like, that's privilege. That's not, But I don't blame her for that. I blame the publisher. Now, recently she did an interview talking about how she doesn't know what she's doing, and her agent or whatever, like, told her what to write, and she was like, okay, great, because I don't know what I'm doing. And yeah, a lot of people were bothered by it because, again, you can't have 2 Black authors. You can't have 2 Asian main characters. You can't have 2 fantasies set in China from the same publisher, but you can have one author write literally the exact same thing, because again, it was fanfic of the same thing. It was based on the same characters. It was the same tropes. It was the point. That was the point, was that they were all the same thing, right? But you can publish all that from someone where you're literally publishing the same thing and they say they don't know what they're doing, and obviously they're like being sold. Again, I loved the book. I think that it's a great Raylo fanfic. I think it's really good. But now you're facing all this criticism where people are saying that she can only write one thing, which I don't think is true. I think she was only trying to write one thing. She was trying to write Raylo fanfic, and it all got published. So I'm interested to see what she does with something else. But at the same time, you know, with the response to her interview and stuff, I personally would like to see her realize her privilege, do some work, and here in the future see her be an advocate for, you know, underrepresented, marginalized authors, and talk about how her privilege was given to her in a way that just would not be done for a BIPOC author, and how that's a problem with publishing. I would love to see her make that journey. Right now, I definitely think it's too early to tell, because change like that does not happen in a day. You know, give someone time. I'm not saying that she will, but I am saying I would love if she did. You know, if she was like, wow, wow, okay, yes, I got 4 of the same fanfic published, and then my agent hand-fed me what I should write for my next book, and this just doesn't happen. This level of support doesn't happen for marginalized authors. I would love to see her make that journey. But I'm also not holding my breath. But, you know, it would be cool. It would be cool. But yeah, people are like, all her books are the same. They were supposed to be. And again, I blame the publisher. It just makes absolutely no sense why you would publish 4 Raylo fanfic from one author. I don't know. Lastly, Sarah J. Maas. Love her books, was brought to Booktube by her books. I think that she does not deserve the praise or the criticism, the hate that she gets. Some of the criticism very valid. Some of it just, you know, yeah, these are problems with society as a whole, but she's just one average white author. But she's not, because she's done so extremely well, right? She's the top seller for like everything. So yeah, she deserves the criticism. I will say, one, I read all these books before Booktube, so I read them on my own. I didn't even know they were hyped. And 2, I personally think she peaked. I think she peaked with Queen of Shadows in Throne of Glass and Akamath in the Akatar series. Her newer stuff, I read Crescent City, and you know, I'm not reading any more of her works. I liked it, but I'm not doing that. I think that she's peaked, and I think part of it is they're giving her too much control, and they shouldn't. Her books don't need to be 1,000 pages. They don't. So anyways, I think she's peaked. But you know, if you like fae or assassins or fantasy where like your main characters stay alive, which is what I like. I loved these books. I loved the romance elements. I loved everything about them. But I'm not continuing to read her. I don't tend to promote her. And the one main reason is because who needs a Sarah J. Maas recommendation? Like, have you not heard of her? I don't know. I feel like if you're watching my channel, you've probably heard of her. I don't think it's necessary to recommend her, truth be told. And secondly, there's a lot of legitimate criticism, and again, like, I don't have to recommend her, so I don't. Is she an overhyped author with overhyped books that I really loved and literally led to my discovery of the book community? Yes. 2 things can be true at the same time, and that's my truth. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that you liked it. Let me know your opinions on these books, some controversial ones, I think. But yeah, these are all the overhyped books. This is not an exhaustive list, but this is a bunch of the overhyped books that I loved, but I just don't recommend very much because they're recommended all over the frickin' place. And you know, I don't like that. I don't like hearing about a book that I've heard about 9 million times, so I don't do it myself. I just don't. I never have, probably never will. It's just not my thing. I don't know what to tell you. Also, as you may notice, the majority of these are white. So overhyped books tend not to have the best diversity. Some of this is, but you know, okay. I think that's all. I'm not going to do a whole rant. But yeah. Have you read, want to read, hated, DNF'd, any of these things? Let me know. Love to talk to you about it. Love to hear any and all the things. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.